Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, why a holiday on GST is no picnic for retailers, and are Canadian companies anti-competitive? There's more scrutiny than ever before. Plus, almost half the cigarettes sold in Canada are on the black market. That comes with a cost. That's all ahead. First, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. President-elect Donald Trump dropped a word bomb this week when he said one of his first acts as president, come January 20th, will be to slap 25% tariffs on all products from Canada and Mexico. Trump said he wants to see tighter border controls of illegal immigrants and drugs. The threat sent shares of U.S. automakers plunging, no surprise, as they would be among the first to suffer, along with U.S. consumers. Millions of Canadians could see one-time payouts of $250. That's if federal parties can come to terms on what it looks like. One issue for opposition parties is that seniors and students were left out of the bonus checks since they go to Canadians who worked in 2023. The feds argued this week that seniors are being supported generously in other ways. Canada's largest independent money manager is selling itself to a Middle Eastern sovereign wealth fund. CI Financial is being taken private by Mubadala Capital, the government of UAE's investment fund, for $4.7 billion. The deal will require sign-off by the federal government. Canada's business leaders added their voice to urge that Canada hike defense spending even further this week so that it hits the 3% of GDP target promised as a member of NATO. The Business Council of Canada report said that defense spending can bolster the economy as well as shore up our relationship with the incoming U.S. president, who has repeatedly insisted NATO members hit 3%. Call it a day late and more than $1 short. The COP29 climate conference finally managed to produce agreement on how much developing nations will get to try to cope with climate change caused by their more developed neighbors. The $300 billion is well short of what they wanted, but the 200 countries involved did agree to work toward a shared financing framework for developing nations. Big U.S. retailers reported mixed results this week. Bad news from Kohl's sent its stock tumbling, while Nordstrom's went the other way after beating expectations. But with the shopping season shortened by 5 weekdays this year, retailers are jittery about the volume of sales in the all-important holiday period. And those are your business briefs. The plan for a tax holiday on GST this December sounds great, but maybe not quite as easy for the retailers who have to navigate delivering it. Dan Kelly is president and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Thanks for being with us, Dan.
Good to be with you.
So there's lots of complexity around this kind of thing, especially because it's short term. What have you been hearing about that, whether the benefit of it, as in maybe people shop more, outweighs some of the complexity of actually having to decide what is covered, what isn't, and different provinces will, of course, differ?
Yeah, look, this on a normal day, I would be celebrating any kind of tax reduction, especially one from this government. But this one is as confusing as sin. I got to tell you, this has gone over like a lead balloon, particularly with retailers. I've had almost no one reach out to me telling me that this is going to be helpful, but a lineup of people asking questions and raising administrative concerns about this. This is a hot mess.
So, and in terms of those administrative concerns, it like literally, practically speaking, might be difficult for some to suddenly give a tax holiday on some items and not others. On balance, do you think it's therefore not worth it? In other words, it's going to cost time and effort for businesses that may not actually benefit in the end.
You know, like, look, the rebate program is fairly straightforward. That should inject some money back into consumers' pockets. But this GST holiday, the administrative costs for this have been passed on to poor, small and medium-sized businesses at their busiest season. Mm-hmm. Look, I don't think it's going to be impossible for a restaurant to implement that. They're moving from basically all of their products being taxed to none of them being taxed other than perhaps some mixed drinks. But for retailers, this is where it is so darn confusing. I spoke to a hobby store owner who said, okay, children's toys are now going to be exempted for 2 months. That means my model airplane, I suppose, is going to be tax-free. But what about the glue and the paint that is on those planes? Is that taxable or not? We've reached out to finance. They can't give us an answer. And so there are literally thousands and thousands of products in a small business at their busiest season, and retailers are going to have to go through and try to figure out and exempt the right ones, keep the tax on the others. doing this at this stage with, probably $500,000 in administrative time to reprogram your machine to take it off, and then another round of that to put it back on in February, this is just too much.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually picture, Dan, arguments between customers and the retailer, which is the last thing, of course, any small business wants. Do you think that the government might be persuaded to change this? I mean, are we there? We may actually see a hard time getting this bill passed at all because it pushed back on other parts of it. But what's your expectation? Yeah,
well, look, that's the other big concern. It's hard to give business owners advice to tuck into this and start putting the steps in place when this hasn't even been legislated yet. So yes, perhaps there is the ability to look at the list with fresh eyes. But look, we're creating brand new categories between products that don't exist today. And we're asking poor small business owners to try to devise what is in the minds of government and what is CRA going to accept at the end of this. I'm worried about small business owners getting bills in in March and April if they've gotten it wrong. And then they're going to be assessed not just the back taxes, but penalties and interest for making honest mistakes in administering a sudden tax reduction, a temporary one at that.
Just a nightmare. Dan, thanks for being with us.
Anytime.
Still ahead, new rules means new scrutiny of Canadian business practices. So how are we doing? Stay with us.